morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I am Chamberlain Uso.
And yes, indeed, from Abuja. You should always add that, Chamberlain.
Okay, all right.
Otherwise, you're going to get people confused. Yes, indeed, we're speaking to you from Abuja. Good morning and welcome. It was a beautiful sunrise that I witnessed on my way to work this morning. Hope it's the same where you are. Yusuf.
Well, clearly I didn't get the memo for wearing blue today, but hey, it's a blue sky anyway in Lagos as well. I'm Ayo Makinde. Good morning and welcome.
Oh, there was no memo anywhere. Just do what you have to do however you like it. But you know, quite a lot went on over the weekend, and I mean, this morning, still trying to wrap my head around the comment of former Minister of Defense, General T.Y. Danjuma. I remember in 2018, he did make that shocker of a narrative where he did ask Nigerians to rise up and defend themselves or they will die. But he's not backing down. Again, over the weekend, he also made this. That was on Friday, wasn't it?
On Saturday.
Saturday, there you go. So it was one that just kept lots of people thinking, how do we approach this? What do they do with all of this? And you also remember that, remember those states that tried to ensure that they put security apparatus in place to ensure things are done. So it is something that maybe we'd like to hear from you, what you think about all of that. And of course, you'll get perspectives of lawyers as well, you know, lots of things to rise and fall in the face of the law these days. Especially lately, you get to read narratives of how the army seems to be making inroads with regards to addressing or tackling this insurgency. So, and then this comment comes through from General Danjuma, defend yourselves.
Defend yourselves. And when you also see some of the stories that we've seen just a few days ago, the army intercepted people who were registering foreigners.
Yeah.
You know, that story cannot just die a natural death. We need to ask questions of NIMSI. You know, that's the commission for, you know, responsible for identification of Nigerians. You know, just what that was about. And, you know, how are we sure that we do not have some more of that who were not, you know, intercepted. But indeed, you're right, Chamberlain. There's been some inroads made in the area of security. You know, there's been a level of success recorded. I'm hoping that the military will be able to keep up the tempo in that regard. Yeah. But, you know, before now, there were strong theories that indeed a lot of foreigners are after our land. And I mean, we've seen lots of people lose their lives, lose their property, lots of IDP camps set up in our country. And this is not in the Northeast. This is in many parts of North Central, many parts of the Northwest, you know, and they're trying to, you know, make their further inroads down south. So you have to ask, you know, all of a sudden we have a lot of IDP camps. Are people unable to go back to their communities? And so you have to ask, is this just, what's going on here? Is this just a general insecurity, or is there a grand plan that we're not aware of? You know, when people like General Danjuma speak, you don't take what they say lightly, because you know that the information available to them is not ordinarily available to the ordinary man. And you remember the last time he spoke with so much passion. If I say I wasn't frightened, I'll be telling a lie. This time around, he seems a little more tempered, but nonetheless, he reiterates what he said before. Defend yourselves. There are people who want your land. And if you know the areas of Taraba, you know the areas of Benue, you know that entire valley, you know that these are extremely fertile lands. And he says, look, I'm not going to tell. They said the last time I spoke to you, they said I did not give you, you said I did not give you arms. I told you to defend yourselves. I did not tell you what you should defend yourselves with. You should go and find out where those people that are trying to come and get your land, where they're getting their own weapons from, and see where you can, you know, how you can get yours as well. They're big questions, and I think that the Nigerian government, you know, we've had this conversation as to whether or not, and this is taking place in the National Assembly as well, whether Nigerians should be able to bear arms. There was controversy when we heard that the Katsina state government had bought weapons for its own people to be able to defend themselves, and then you heard the governor of Ondo State, you know, crying foul and saying, no, you cannot let the people of Katsina get arms, and then you leave us, you know, you don't let Amotekun, you know, bear arms. So these, and I think the federal government has responded to say that no, we never at any point approved weapons for anybody. Chamberlain, the conversation will continue to go back and forth. People want to feel secure.
Yeah.
If the state is not showing capacity in providing that core function, they want to be able to do it by themselves. It's all fine for us who are living in the cities. For those in rural communities whose livelihoods depend on the land, that's where they get, you know, they're so attached to their land, and that's how they keep sustenance, and that's how it's also related to their tradition. The land is everything for them. There needs to be a concerted effort to ensure, and the state needs to ensure, that the people feel safe on their land. And if they wish to be involved in it in terms of keeping their own security, there must be an avenue where people can legitimately get armed, you know, to be able to prevent incursions and marauders from taking over their land, Chamberlain.
Well, are you already doing something about this?
Well, the part of this conversation that interests me is the part where Malcolm mentioned those in the rural communities. Of course, Chamberlain, you know, that's something that always gets my interest. And the reason is very simple. We are supposed to have local government officials who are supposed to help ensure that some things go in a particular way. But when you recall the press conference that was held by the two deputies in the National House of Assembly, and National, Parliament, then you wonder exactly whether or not the state governments have interest in securing the lives of the people, and consequently perhaps giving bite to that conversation that, you know, General Danjuma had with in public, what he said in public. So if the local communities cannot defend themselves, it's only a matter of time before they come to the centers, to the city centers. Recall that we were warned when, you know, things were going wrong in Nasarawa and, you know, some states around 2 or 3 states away from Abuja. Some were saying to us, look, guys, be careful, because this thing that is so far away is not so far away. Before you know what is happening, it's going to get to Abuja. And exactly that is what happened. Thankfully, we're not hearing that news anymore. So is there any way, anything we can do to ensure that the local government officials, the local government system is able to prevent this acidic relationship that people have with bandits? People seem to trust these bandits. You recall that conversation, that issue that arose some time ago, when some people preferred the bandits to defend them over and above official security. It says a lot. So for a general for a soldier of General Danjuma's clout to be saying what he's saying, I want to believe that the federal government of Nigeria, including the military, all spheres of the military, the police and everyone, should be paying attention to it and exactly asking themselves, what are we not doing right? Because we can't just continue to paper over cracks, as we often say, Chamberlain. Or can we?
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, people need to do just a little more. I mean, when he makes that kind of statement, it's not that what you immediately have to do is to bear arms. It may apply to different people in different ways, but if you are not paying attention to your environment, perhaps you need to. So little things, whatever you can do, wherever you are, within the limits of the law, you have to take personal responsibility for your security in the first instance, and then the state will eventually, or should eventually, come in as required by law. Well, that said, we'll take a moment and we will be back with you with a review of some of the dailies here today. Welcome back. Let's start with this Nigeria. Well, they interestingly pick up on some security narratives here. And as America issues security alert, beware of terrorists' attack in FCT, other states, U.S. warns FG. There is an elevated risk of terror attacks in Nigeria, especially in Abuja. Targets may include, but are not limited to, government buildings, places of worship, schools, markets, shopping malls, hotels, bars, restaurants, athletic gatherings, transport terminals, law enforcement facilities, and international organizations. The U.S. Embassy will offer reduced services until further notice. Wow. Okay. So, well, there you go. It is the big one on the front page of this Nigeria. They consider that very serious enough to make it a big lead. So, go ahead. Yeah, so lots of public gatherings, areas highlighted. So, usually, I mean, when you see this kind of areas that are pointed out, the strategy is they always want to make that impact. But we'll expect the government to respond to this today. You know, if they haven't already, or haven't seen it. Maybe I need to check again. So, but they will need to respond and as much as possible. And speaking of which, NDLEA conducts massive operation, arrests 10 suspects, seizes drugs in 5 states. Well, I may almost say that, yeah, NDLEA has been up and about lately, and kudos to them. They've been doing what they can, because most times, even recently, if you go back and check, most of all the crimes, security operatives will always tell you over 90% of them are drug-related, drug-influenced, usually under the influence. So if you could have a significant dent on that, you never can tell.
But sometimes you have to ask, Jimberling, are they really having a dent? I mean, when you look at the amount, the haul that they, you know, drag in almost every weekend, because what I've noticed now is that every Sunday, the NDLEA seems to update all media houses on what they have been up to during the week. Yeah. And every weekend, you see the haul, you know, the stash that they keep bringing in. And you have to ask, are these people deterred at all? That's the people who are smuggling these drugs about. You know,
and the sad part of the very challenging part of all of this is, people always think and wonder, if Jeremiah was not doing all these seizures, if they were not going about this, so is this what has been going on in the country all the while? Oh dear. Until you just ask yourself, you just imagine. But that's why we say, look, whichever agency, whoever is doing the right thing, wherever they are, kudos, wherever they are, really. But that's this Nigeria.
And we hope that they don't get tired.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, look at the Guardian newspapers, and this is what they have for you this morning. Cholera cases, deaths surge amid nationwide flooding. Well, this should come as no surprise, because when you have flooding of the nature that we have seen, the type that we have seen, it's only a matter of time before drinking water sources are polluted and are mixing with the things that they ought not to mix with, feces, etc. And it's no surprise that this is what we're seeing. Cholera as a result of that. NDDC confirms 10,745 cases, 256 deaths in 31 states. Reports 42% increase in September cases compared with August. UNICEF, more than 1.5 million children at risk. Nigeria at extreme higher risk of climate change impacts, ranks second out of 163 countries. WHO forced to ration vaccine as cholera cases surge worldwide. Flooding, terrorism-related activities, civil unrest, lack of proper environmental sanitation, others blamed for increase. So a lot of this, you know, they're all intertwined. If, you know, there is no work done in certain areas, it will have another effect on another area. So we've had flooding. People have not just lost their lives and property as a result, but more people could still die as a result of the fact that there is no proper drinking water or proper clean water source. So it's all very complicated, and it ought not to be that way if only we are proactive. Cholera is a preventable disease. We just need to be proactive about it. You also see this, Kanu, anxiety. Supreme Court hears federal government's appeal today. So they've taken this to the Supreme Court of the land. Youths raise concern over 2023 elections as group offers path for peaceful existence. That is also there on the front page for you. Let's leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
Flip to Daily Independent newspaper this morning, and it also has something quite interesting that's been in the news for a while. 2023 budget, FG earmarks 6.3 billion naira for second Abuja runway and national carrier. Okay, I have no comments on that. That's the lead of the paper this morning, and of course right under the picture you see opposition parties, CSOs now to resist move to sack INEC chairman. Exactly what's going on? We often say that there is no smoke without fire. Where is the smoke now? Because it looks like there could be a fire, but hey, that's what you have as lead of the paper this morning, and several other stories you would want to pick up. Flood. Serap gives Buhari 7 days to probe ecological funds spending. That story you'll find on page 7. The question is that going to happen? Let's leave it there for Daily Independent.
A New Telegraph next. Presidency ethnic card exposes Nigeria's fault lines ahead of 2023 poll as identity politics stokes racial fire. And we shouldn't be playing with fire, actually. So, very, very serious one if we don't handle it properly. So, hoping that, you know, we all get the memo and do what is right. U.S. terror attacks imminent in Nigeria. That we already highlighted previously. But you got several others here, just trying to, I mean, you equally get to see a bit of that flooding story here, where it says United Nigeria donates, Bielsa, relief materials coming their way, so they'll be glad about that one. That's New Telegraph this morning.
You also have this, I'm okay, presidential race, not wrestling bout. That's from Tinubu. Yes, people have been asking about his health, and he says it's not a physical contest. Says presidency, knowledge-driven job, not raw power. Donates 100 million naira to Kano flood victims. Adds, I have few steps to become Nigerian president. Tinubu will unite, move Nigeria forward. That's from Ganduje. Atiku Okowa campaign mocks Tinubu over empty Kano streets. So page 8 is where you see details. Page 9 as well also has some details for you. You'll also see this here. Insurers reap huge premium from rising insecurity, inflation, economic uncertainties. Looks like people are turning more to insurance now, but you know, it's a really tricky one for them as well, because all you have to do is have a disaster like we've seen with the floods, and you know, a whole company can go underwater.
And it could crash even the insurance.
It could crash the insurance. Yes, it did, it could. Look at this, life policy rises 74%. It is a better investment option, that's according to experts, but it's certainly something for people to consider, you know, looking at insurance for the things that you consider valuable. Ecological funds, don't politicize flood. Akwa Ibom Delta tells federal government. Peter Obi seeks urgent declaration of flood disaster emergency. He's been visiting the affected communities as well, you know, those communities affected by floods. And I think he's even asked all the presidential aspirants that they postpone campaigns to be able to pay attention to what is going on in these communities. Some people will say it's a fair call. Bandits kill 3 passengers, abduct 3 others in Katsina. That's also on the front page. Anti-party, PDP in dilemma over Wike others. We might need to leave it there, but if you flip to the back page, there is something on sports. NFF ruined Nigerian league. That's from Ulisa Debe. Find the background to that particular story inside the Vanguard newspapers. Let's leave it there for the paper.
I'm wondering why we didn't go to Mr. and Mrs., but hey, I'm going to let you do it yourself. And since there is no Lagos Inquirer, let me take you the Abuja Inquirer today for my brothers and sisters right there. And the lead story is what you have on its front page. Cooking gas more expensive in Abuja. Price leaps by over 60% in 1 year. You may want to ask yourself why that is the case. The details you will find continue on page 2 of the Abuja Inquirer this morning. And right above the nameplate, I'm running for presidency, not WWE, Tinubu says. And the rider is ascribed to Atiku. APC will account for its failure. And the details continue on page 3 of the paper this morning, and several other stories you'll find interesting. Flooding, U.S. commits $1 million to assist in Nigeria. Stories on page 11. Insecurity, CCTV usage now compulsory in Abuja, says FCTA. Question: how far so far? 2. Where are we now? That's the Abuja Inquirer today.
Oh boy, you know, Ayo, when you read that comment, say, I'm running for presidency, not WWE. I can just help you because, I mean, you have a lot of WWE fans who will be wondering. I didn't link that. He definitely get the attention with that one, but you know how it is here. They will always bring in some strenuous factors. Take a look at Leadership newspaper next. 2023 presidency. In supremacy contest for Kano, Atiku, Tinubu go dirty. I won't be a part-time president hibernated in Dubai always, APC flag bearer. Empty Kano streets, signposts your defeat, ex-VP fires back. We own Kano, you're just fighting in vain, NNPP tells APC PDP. Atiku's picture missing on Rivers PDP branded vehicles. So you'd expect the news hounds to pick up on the minutest of details. So we'll magnify it.
That's what they're trained to do.
There you go. So definitely. So who knows which what one would be similar to WWE now. I didn't even know he watches WWE. Okay. All right.
WWE. I mean, he's not very current with the name. I said WWF. In the days when we watched it, and you know, we're ardent fans, it was WWF. Okay, look at this. Daily Trust. Look at this. NDLEA, State House, Army, top list as federal government budgets 23.57 billion naira for vehicles. 22.5 billion naira voted for same item this year. 20 agencies to spend 29.32 billion naira on refreshments, sitting allowance, welfare, others. So you might want to flip to page 4 if you're interested in details of that. Is it justifiable? Proposal frivolous, meant to siphon funds. Well, you already have the CSOs, you know, raising an alarm or responding in that regard. They have an infographic for you on the front page, breaking it down. 2023 budget, federal government purchase of vehicles for 212 government agencies. And they're telling you already that the NDLEA, which we just referenced a few moments ago, will be getting a huge chunk of that. Some people will say deservedly. They have shown capacity with little that they have, and if they're asking for more, and they're, you know, showing results already, then, you know, they should be given a lot more.
Absolutely.
Look at this. Cooking gas price soars as NLNG cuts supply. Okay. The flood also having its own effect. Don't forget that that was last week or 2 weeks ago, the NLNG declared a force majeure on gas, and that is certainly having an effect on the price of domestic gas, domestic cooking gas. Why petrol is still scarce in Abuja after Lokoja flood? Ipman is explaining this morning, page 6 is where you see details. ISWAP storms Boko Haram enclave, kills 6, seizes weapons. So they're turning on themselves, it would appear. They still have that warning for you from the United States Embassy. Terror attacks likely in Abuja. To be forewarned, they say, is to be forearmed. So let us hope that this warning is preparing us to be armed and to be alert and vigilant of our environment, especially here in Abuja.
Look at Nigerian News Direct this morning. Crude oil lifting. That's the lead of the story of the paper today. FG loses multi-billion naira to foreign vessel operators. Find the details on page 16. That picture, of course, the details you'll find right there. But right under the story of the right under the pictures, you'll find this one. Makinde leads Guild of Editors on inspection of aviation fuel facility, road, health, education project in Oyo. Well, if you're interested, most certainly the story is on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And a number of other stories you'll find. Insecurity, Abuja at risk of terror attacks as U.S. raises threat alert. That and so many others you'll find interesting this morning on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. And with that, we come to the end of a look at the papers, but not the program. More when we return.
The use of technology in conducting transparent elections is a focus of this training of master trainers by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Amidst reports of plans to distort the use of technology for the 2023 general elections, the chairman of the electoral body assures Nigerians of massive deployment of technology to all parts of the country for the exercise.
The combination of beamers and IRA portal have come to stay as a means of voter education and transmission of election results. Nothing will change that reality.
While the chairman of the board of Electoral Institute harps on the need for credible elections, the country director of International Foundation for Electoral Systems promises continued partnership with INEC.
The special training and retraining of all categories of electoral personnel for delivery of effective and efficient electoral services at all levels is a standing principles of the Commission.
INEC can count on our readiness to continually partner with the Commission in achieving its mission of serving as an independent and effective election management body committed to conducting free, fair, and credible elections for sustainable democracy in Nigeria.
Recent reports of violence at campaign venues and the refusal to grant access to venues by some state governments also have the attention of the electoral body.
Let me caution parties and their supporters to focus on issues and steer clear of attacks on each other. These are not only violations of the Electoral Act 2022, but also negate the voluntary commitment by all political parties and candidates to the letter and spirit of the peace accord signed about 3 weeks ago under the auspices of the National Peace Committee.
The 3-day training is expected to equip participants on how to be able to effectively and efficiently organize and lead training sessions for other officials towards the conduct of a successful 2023 general elections.
Well, it appears the heat is on and 2023 elections is getting closer. Let's take this first conversation today to Abuja. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. As you've seen there in that welcoming slide, Professor Ben Odo joins us next. He is the ABGA governorship candidate for Ebonyi State. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. How are you today?
Yeah, we're doing good. Yeah.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you. The campaign is on,
Yes.
and so we believe that lots of activities are going on. So how is it coming on in Ebonyi State with ABGA, your party?
Yes, we are doing pretty fine. ABGA, under what we are doing currently, we are focused on issues, and we are the only candidate responding to the issues with specific solutions and timelines and how we want to drive those solutions to ensure that we reduce our poverty level. In the last 7 years, poverty has grown from 56% to 79.76% under the current leadership. And that's not good enough for us. So what we are doing is we're looking at the different sectors of our economy, and we have clear cut-out strategies to deal with issues from education, health, agri, security, and technology. So we're doing fine, and our people are at home with us. They are taking our messages, and they have confidence in what we say. I also served in the current government between 2015 and resigned in 2018. Because
you resigned?
I did, yes.
Why?
I resigned because the policy direction, the investment direction of the state was in total contrast to what I believe would drive prosperity in Ebonyi. So I left.
So was there prior conversation about how that was going to pan out before you were made the SSG with you?
I ran for senatorial election in my zone in 2015 in ABGA. That election suffered extraordinary...
In ABGA?
In ABGA.
That was when, after
2015.
you tried with the APC?
No, I ran Senate first before I did the APC in 2019. So after the ABGA senatorial context, I was appointed secretary to government from ABGA. I was not a PDP person. So I disagreed with them on policy direction because in the last 7 years, almost all the investment has gone in projects that neither stores the right value or converts the right value. So what you see today is that monies have been spent, but poverty continues to grow up from 56 to 79, almost 80%. So 24% increment in 7.5 years. That's not good for us. And under this campaign, there is extraordinary oppression and repression in the city. APC every day, they issue warning, they issue attacks. If you are not supporting the APC candidate, you'll be attacked. My convoy was attacked last week.
Who issues the warning?
Local government chairman, the party agent, the candidate of the party of APC. So if you move in from Enugu into Ebonyi now, from the boundary all the way into the city, you only see APC billboard. All other billboards, APGA, PDP, Labour, all removed.
But in what capacity does the APC candidate issue the threat?
He's a speaker, and the governor wants him at all costs. So they don't care what you say. They just want the guy to be governor. He is unpopular. People don't want him.
I'm a little curious. What do you think is the missing link between, the amount of work that is going on in Ebonyi State and the poverty figures? What do you think has prevented the amount of money, the resources expended there from reflecting in the daily lives of the people? Because one of the things that the current governor likes to, also talk about is the fact that he uses a lot of direct labor in doing this job and the jobs that have been carried out in the state. Why do you think that people's lives are not any better?
This is very important. Let me make it straight. You see, if we must address poverty, we need to give our people skill. We need to invest in our education. If we don't raise critical mass of people who have the skill to do things with their life, they can't create wealth, they cannot do anything. So what happens in Ebonyi is that 85, let me say conservatively, maybe about 70-80% of the funds invested by this government is invested in concrete. And these concrete are not even where they add any value.
What do you mean? Infrastructure development?
Yes, I will give you a practical example. There are about 18 overhead bridge crosses now today in Ebonyi, about 18. Many of them are built in locations where there are zero traffic In fact, the one at Ebonyi, if in the last 2-3 months now that we've been consulting people, we haven't seen a single vehicle across that overhead bridge crossing. Many of them are like that. The community center was built with over 8 billion. The shopping mall was built with over 7 billion. I was in government when the shopping mall proposal came. And I said, mall is a private sector driven initiative. All we have to do as government is to provide land to any private sector who wants to build mall. Let them build their mall, rent their spaces, and pay us taxes. People came from Lagos with a plan to do the mall. First Bank wrote government that they have funds to support this project. All we needed was to provide 3 hectares. But the government ignored the private sector person who had funds to build the mall and decided to build the mall. And today, you go there, the mall has been out now for the past 2 years. There's no transaction going on there. The per capita earning of the people is so low, mall is for middle income earners. The people can't even shop there. There is nothing going on in the place. So much of this project that has drained the resources of the state are projects that has no direct link with the people. I give you an example.
In other words, you're faulting the futuristic infrastructure development
exactly,
in the state.
Because this infrastructure can't even be maintained. Where do you find the resources to maintain them? The entire Ministry of Health, the entire workforce of the ministry, has only 6 doctors. The entire state. 17 nurses and 1 pharmacist. How do you run a health sector with that kind of numbers? Our education is in crisis. Under the former governor Samego, our medical school at some point was ranked 2nd after University of Ibadan. Our law faculty was ranked 1st in this country. Today, the law faculty has no accreditation. Most schools in the boy have just 1 teacher, 2, 3. No seat, nothing in the places.
Is that not a federal institution?
No, primary school and secondary school are under the purview of the state government.
So, in other words, what would you then say was responsible for that?
It's because of vested interest. He is an engineer. He has been a contractor all his life. So this is the only thing he knows how to do. This is what benefits him.
But the people elected him.
People elected him, yes. But this is where we are. And that's why we don't want him to bring a successor. Let the people choose who they want. Because he is a replica of the man.
But is that not what's going to happen? There will be an election.
There will be an election. And that's why we are saying he should allow people to campaign. Let the masses make their choices.
So is there do you have any good authority that he's the one responsible for people not campaigning?
Absolutely. Because all he does is issue threats. A few weeks ago, he ordered military men to flog civil servants who came to work late. He's a dictator.
But we saw, I mean, I don't know if you saw the statement from the
this government does is denial. The video clips are there, the evidence are there. When we were attacked, we were doing live video when the attack was going on. Yet they deny. All they do is to keep denying. You go to the city there, you feel the repression. Lots of journalists have been flogged in that city.
So what, is it just your convoy that's attacked? I mean, what did the police say about this? Did you report the matter to the police?
I did. I did report to DSS. I had a team of DSS with me. I had a team of police. They were also eyewitness reporters.
So I'm just looking now. I know that, for a while, excuse me, for a while, your party, ABGA, was, popular in the southeast of the country, which is where Ebonyi is. But largely, ABGA has never won Ebonyi State before.
Yes.
The PDP has had a pretty strong hold on the party, perhaps until the current governor defected to the APC. How do you hope to make an inroad, not belonging to a mainstream party such as the PDP, or maybe even the governor's party? Why do you think that ABGA will be the party that would appeal to the people of Ebonyi?
I will give you historical, my historical involvement in policy of Ebonyi and what I have stood for in the last 8 years. First of all, in the last 8 years now, 7 years I've remained the only one speaking to issues. During COVID, the government was all over the place harassing people over taxation. In Ebonyi today, small businesses cannot operate because of multiple harassment on taxation. I've spoken on policy on education, I've spoken on health, I've spoken on taxes, I've virtually been the one talking. Now, I am a teacher by profession. I teach in the university. The university community has been now totally obliterated. The university is handicapped. They can't even produce students who are competitive because there is no funding to do research. As a great assistant, I had fun to travel overseas to do research. Today, it doesn't exist there. So the university community, teachers have large demographics. The faith-based community, the market people, all those who are going to be bringing bulk votes in this election, they have faith in what I've stood for. While in government, on all policies that has brought us to where we are, I said, look, if we must raise a society where we will have shared prosperity, let us invest in our people. Our diaspora remittances now is the lowest in the entire southern Nigeria because we don't have the critical mass of people who do stuff overseas to remit funds back home. So, irrespective of the fact that I'm running from ABGA, the people back home, they are looking at all of us, the candidates of all the parties. They're not looking at the parties now because they all know all of us. We've been around now at least for the last 8 years. So they're interested in how will each of us address their concern. What are we bringing to the table? It's not about party now. It's about what each person is saying, what is he offering. And I'm the only one who is speaking to the issues and offering them solutions to these issues. So I don't expect these elections. I don't think this election is about PDP or APC or ABGA. It's about which of the candidates will best address the need of the people. And I think I represent that new paradigm that they expect to see.
So if I understand you clearly, you're saying that the people are going to look beyond parties.
Absolutely. Absolutely. People are fed up now. You can't have a state that has moved from 56% poverty rate to 80% in 7 years. Third poorest state in this federation.
But has that happened before? Have they looked beyond parties before? Normally, if they look beyond parties, would they look beyond the senatorial zones?
In fact, in my election in 2015, I won the election. I was practically rigged out. I was appointed SLG because of my performance in ABGA. Otherwise, they won't bring someone from ABGA to serve in PDP government. I was not a member of PDP. The people in my place voted for me. So there is a history to that. Maria Wachi in 2015 also won election in PPA. She came to the House of Assembly. So the people are in pain. They want to hear from us. How does the life of the woman in the market, how are we going to improve on her life? The young boy who has made a first class in the university, who has no job, nobody is offering him opportunity to go and become a graduate assistant or to go overseas for training. The woman who is who has a business of about 100,000 total capital outlay, who is being asked to pay tax of 20,000, how are you going to protect her? In Ebonyi today, across all communities, across all walks of life, this government interferes in their affairs. You can't elect a town union president without government interference. You can't elect a union as Okada. Almost all unions, the government are interested. So what you see is that there's crisis across the entire state. This government has created more crisis than ever.
Crisis across the entire state?
Yes. There's more communal war in Ebonyi today than ever.
You know, I'm looking at some of the stats which you have reeled out, and I'm looking at this work done by Budget. Do you know Budget?
Yes.
An NGO that focuses largely on the budgets of states.
Yes.
And see how they have performed.
Yes.
And I'm looking at their ranking now for their latest report on the state of the states. And in terms of fiscal performance ranking, Ebonyi ranks among the first 5 states.
That's not the issue.
Just a moment, let me finish. The first 5 states in the federation, they rank alongside Rivers, Kaduna, Lagos, Cross River. Yes. Ebonyi is right there at the top. Look at how they're performing in terms of their index. Ebonyi again is among the first 5 states, which seem to be doing well. I'm looking at a number of other indices. I mean, it doesn't seem to tally with this picture you're painting of Ebonyi as not doing very well, because on lots of the indices they're looking at here, it does look like Ebonyi is faring pretty okay.
Let me give you the right context. Budget performance is different from government priority. If you can budget all your fund in areas that offer nothing to the people and perform well, that doesn't translate to real sector results.
Yeah, but
so the question is, where is the state budgeting for? Where are the funds going?
Part of what it is that, you know, they are rated on
Yes.
is their dependence on federal government revenue, that federal government allocation. Ebonyi State is one of the states that is not depending a lot on the on the revenue coming in from FARC.
You're not getting the point. This money that is budgeted, which has been now adjudged as one of the best performing states under budget performance, where is the fund going? Is the fund going into education? Is it going into health? Is it going into food production?
Yeah, but for them, yes, food production.
For instance, in our region,
yes,
Ebonyi now, food commodity price is highest in Ebonyi than anywhere in Southeast. In the last 8 years, CBN has released 10 billion.
That's what you say.
So where is the food?
We have not been able to go to Ebonyi to verify this. You say it is the highest. We also know that there was a drive at some point to make Ebonyi one of the states that produced the rice.
That's what I'm saying.
Let me finish. The rice that feeds the nation.
Yes.
Everybody knows about Ebonyi rice.
Yes.
I would imagine that the people who will farm this rice will be people in Ebonyi.
Absolutely.
And of course, they will not be buying rice if they're the ones farming the rice.
Yes.
So if they're the ones farming this rice and making it available to, you know, other parts of the country, is that not one of the things
That's the point I'm making.
That should be having a direct impact on their lives?
It's not happening.
How is that possible?
8 billion was released to the state government to support farmers to grow rice. The fund was moved to other sector, construction. And now,
are you saying that Ebonyi is not growing any rice as we speak?
We are not growing. That's the issue. Bulk of the rice coming to Ebonyi comes from the north, the paddy. We buy from Benue, Makurdi, Nasarawa, Kebbi. That's where the paddies come from.
Are you saying that
we are not growing?
In the 3 years when you were in government,
yes,
there was no rice grown?
I'll give you a story. The first fund that came while I was in government was 2 billion. Okay? I proposed, let us invest in our ability to do land preparation. Now, let us provide, the CBN agreement with the state government was that we are going to anchor the project, which means we take the loan on behalf of the farmers. Give the farmers the loan, they grow the rice, we offtake, and now pay back CBN. Out of the 2 billion, only about 800 and something million was applied to machinery, fertilizer, and agrochemicals. The fund to manage a farm, 1.something billion, was never released till I left. Additional 6 billion came. No farmer got any money from the bill, that amount of money. So we are not growing rice.
Are you saying that the CBN does not have a mechanism to be able to monitor
I do not know.
whether when it gives states funds,
I don't know.
You know, they are able to use it for the purpose for which it is meant?
The key issue in the budget,
able to push that forward, you know, to rise up the index or whatever, rise up, or let me say reduce poverty within its communities. And poverty has many indexes. It has the index of education, it has the index of health, which these are fundamental. So how do you think media freedoms, how is that going to help those kinds of indices, which is what a lot of people will be looking at?
Media brings the facts to the surface. And if you're a chief executive, if you allow the media to say, okay, this is our findings. In this sector, you are not doing well. There are rules for improvement. If you allow people to tell you this, and you are willing to accept correction and improve yourself, it ultimately shapes the final outcome. But if you're a leader that oppresses freedom of the press, you don't want them to say exactly things the way they are, because you are going this way. Nothing changes. So there is a huge connect between press freedom and optimizing performance of governance process. If you diminish press freedom, the ultimate outcome will suffer serious setback. And the people who are supposed to express themselves say, look, this man said he has spent all this money. I'm not feeling anything. So you see, once you impede on press, it's going to affect the life of the people because nobody is able to express himself. Everybody is just clapping.
How do you hope to rate the issue of social justice? By what indexes would you want, if you were able to clinch the ticket or the seat,
yes,
by what indices would you want to be rated as having delivered social justice?
I want to be rated as that governor that has allowed people to run their affairs without interferences. I'll give you an example. We have, in the school, we have student union government. In the market, we have the trade unions. People who sell all commodities, they have the associations. You have the transporters, you have the building material. You have all these people who are doing stuff on a daily basis. If as a governor, all I do is to determine who becomes their leader, I'm putting crisis. I want to allow our people to operate their business in an environment where they enjoy peace and they're able to express their opinion and make their choices. That's who I want to be.
Well, how come you didn't reference the medical facility, medical university in Ebonyi, which the government has given them kudos for?
Now, that medical university,
is it not good enough?
It's a good idea.
But you've been there. Definitely, you've seen it.
I've seen it. But there's
does it meet the standards?
Let me go a different route.
No, well, you don't talk about the standards?
Let me go a different route, first of all. If the state has spent state fund to build a facility as massive as that, and now the state has donated to the federal government, the implication is that the Ebonyi people...
But it's owned by Ebonyi people.
It's not owned by Ebonyi people. It has been donated to the federal government.
Yeah, but who eats Ebonyi?
So the opportunity available to Ebonyi people through that investment will further be diminished.
So would you...
employment is going to come through the approval of the federal government. States can't employ without approval of the federal government. How do you take state fund and invest in a sector like that and now take the state facility and donate to federal government?
You know, it's amazing. Listen,
so I don't understand.
I mean, when I don't understand, lots of people also look at the southeast.
Yes.
And then quite a number of them say, look, Ebonyi has the best road network in the southeast.
Yes.
They've got some of the best infrastructure development in the southeast.
Yes.
But you here saying, well, no, that doesn't
I give him
affect
credit
the
for the
people.
roads. Absolutely, I give him credit for the roads. But far beyond the roads, there are other major investments in infrastructures that ought not to be invested on.
So but perhaps he's looking out. I mean, because some people will say, oh, this is not just about the now. You've talked about how he's built an institution and he's donated it to the federal government.
Yes.
But it's not the federal government that's going to attend the institution.
Yeah.
It will still be the people of Ebonyi. And perhaps that investment is what Ebonyi needs to open up. Because
it's not opening up. That's the question. That is the issue.
But it was only just
not happening.
It was only just donated a few months ago.
If you bought an aircraft now from Abuja to Enugu or from Lagos to Enugu, if you land at the airport and you are going, if you take statistics, I've done that severally. Most times, aboard the aircraft that lands in Enugu, less than 10 persons are going to Ebonyi. There is no market.
Isn't that something that should worry you? So
it's worrying me.
Is it not something that, you know, perhaps he thinks that this is what, I'm not making excuses for him.
It's worrying me
but
because...
the chances that more people will attend a federal institution based in your state are far higher than, you know, just people in Ebonyi going to a state-owned institution. You don't think so?
Time will tell, and I will explain that. Dr. Sameg was a governor in that state. He established a state university. That state university was supposed to support in raising the critical manpower requirements. Okay? That investment that took us from where we were in 1999 to where we had over hundreds of people doing stops around the world, that investment has been abandoned.
Pardon me, we need to wrap up now, but is it true that you tried to stop the airport that was being built in your village by the state government?
No, I will explain what happened at the airport.
But you didn't talk about it at all.
The airport project, okay? When the project was conceived, people's land were collected without compensation. People were moved from their homes without regard to decent
Is that why you
habitat.
tried to stop it?
No, I called the governor and said, I am not against your project of airport, but can you kindly work out appropriate compensation so that these families can be appropriately taken care of? That was my position. And the airport, again, today, from Enugu to Abakaliki is 35 minutes. So I don't know the value is going to bring in immediate. I don't know.
Okay, well, different strokes for different folks. You say you don't like the infrastructure development,
the
apart from
priority choices of his project is what has brought us from where we are to increase our poverty today.
All right,
Professor, so the numbers are there. It's not my numbers.
Professor Bernardo, I've got governorship candidate for Ebonyi State. Thank you for coming on.
Thank
and
you.
All the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, let's go over now to Lagos. Ayo.
Thank you for staying with us. And of course, you know that last week, the National Assembly raised the alarm that 25 states, which are yet to support the bills on the amendment of the 1999 Constitution, are requesting that certain bills be included. Otherwise, they will not continue to consider the Constitution amendment process as well. To give us an understanding of what is happening, Professor Paul Ananaba joins us this morning. He's the Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Nigerians.
So, first of all, how did you receive that news from the National Assembly?
Well, I mean, it's nothing that is strange. The Constitution in Section 9 has outlined what will be required to amend the Constitution, and particularly the Nigerian Constitution. Our Constitution is a rigid Constitution, it's written, so it's not a Constitution you can amend in any way you want. So when the amendment process goes through first reading, it goes through second reading, you begin to go to committees, public hearing, and all that. By the time whether it is voted by clause or whatever, by the time it gets to being passed by the National Assembly, both houses, it will go to the states. And why should it go to the states? It goes to the states because of the nature of federalism we have. And when it gets to the states, if they are to become just robots, then there's no point for it to go through the states. But my concern and worry about that is that this administration, this assembly, has a short time. You know, no constitutional amendment will practically go beyond that assembly. Even though the last assembly, the 8th assembly, tried to make rules that will assist bills to survive the assembly. But my brother, the practical effect is that any assembly that comes in will want to look at the bill and practically begin afresh. So if we have, where has the National Assembly gone all this while? In following up, you don't just throw these bills to those houses.
Conversation, what is interesting there is, I don't know if this has happened before, where all the states write a letter to the National Assembly and say, unless these bills are included in the proposition, the Constitution amendment, we're not going to consider the bills.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They are not robots. They represent their people. This constitutional amendment is the constitution of the entire country. So if they come to a point where they see that their interest is not properly, that's why you have to have 24 states. If 25 states are now saying, no, we won't, then that bill cannot go on.
I'm a little confused.
The Assembly needs to take back those and go back to review the requests by the states.
You say that the houses of assembly represent their people, but so do the members of the National Assembly. They represent their people from the same states.
You see, that's the politics in it. I'm from a federal constituency that has 3 local governments. One man representing 3 local governments. I don't know how much he will be able to do compared to the state House of Assembly, where my local government alone is a state constituency. So I'm not saying that anybody represents more, but when two of them are speaking, one is closer to the grassroots, practically speaking. So what am I saying? Then the state assembly will have its own input. The constitution envisages that.
I get
should
that.
not be ignored.
I agree. I get that. And perhaps, of course, as you said, that is why the constitution amendment process should go through the states. But the situation where the state House of Assembly are having this position is a question that I'm asking. Is that to say that there is a dissonance or distance between the representatives of the people at the National Assembly as opposed to the people in the state Houses of Assembly?
There will naturally be. And that's what the Constitution also envisages. You see, at the National Assembly, the discussions will be a bit different. The national issues are being looked at. You vote your rep to go to Abuja to discuss national issues, possibly with such person's constituency perspectives in it. But when you elect a House of Assembly person, he's not looking at national issues. It's more circumscribed to what happens in the state. How does it affect my state? But the person going to us, he has nobody from another state to discuss with.
Interestingly, one of the bills that the 25 states have refused to talk about concerns the local governments that you mentioned earlier. You're saying that the State House of Assembly, for instance, they have representatives that are closer to the people at the local government level. But then one of the bills being considered, which the states have refused to take a look at, is the local government autonomy issue, which would have taken government closer to the people. So, do you see a problem with that?
If we come from the prism of patriotism, we should worry. But if you look at the type of politics played at the states, there are very few states that have, unquote, independent assemblies. The governors control those houses of assembly. And that's why if a governor wants to remove a deputy governor, for example, before you turn around, the person is removed. Even when the judicial proceedings are ongoing. Now, when you see many of those assemblies writing, it is the government, it's the executive of that state that are writing. Because you dare not challenge the governor in your state as a rep, as somebody in the House of Assembly.
How does that affect the Houses of Assembly considering bills that will take government closer to the people?
So when you give local governments autonomy, the state governments are likely to collapse. How does these states make money? It's because you know the problem of Section 162 of the Constitution, state joint account. You have heard that many times, so I'm not going to go into that. When these monies come, how many of these local governments indeed get their allocation as they come from FARC? The state government finds its way, make sure in many states that there's a transition administration, so you have no mandate. You are appointed to go there and oversee. Then, in many cases, even when there's election, for you to get tickets and win, look at these states. In each of those states where elections are done at the local government elections, is it not the governor's party that wins all the states?
More questions to ask, Prof, but we need to take a short break, take a few messages, and we'll be right back to continue the conversation. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Well, Prof, when you say that, talking about the local government funding and the use it has on the states, I'm wondering, is that to say that we will never have local government autonomy again, so long as the governors have the kind of stranglehold they have on the House of Assembly?
That's why that amendment is being proposed. If that amendment goes through, remember, like I said, Section 162 of the Constitution talks about state joint account. That's where the problem came from. So, in a way, the governors are acting within the Constitution. But it may not be in the best interest of the system. Now, if the local governments are going to be third tier, let them be third tier. That's what they're trying to do, autonomy. And you have seen that this president has even gone through executive orders, same with the judiciary and all that. So we need to allow these 8 levels of governance to have some degree of autonomy and operate properly. Now, if the constitution remains as it is, local governments will continue to be more or less appendages, to governors. And I don't see any governor that will allow local government autonomy to take place.
Essentially, this is all about funding.
Exactly.
But we have had situations before in the previous republics where the local governments were functional in the interest of the people and in the interest of the political class. So if you're saying that, it would seem like right now the political class does not want the local governments to function, it seems, or rather it sounds like you're saying they do not see any value in it and consequently should probably be scrapped.
You find out that many state governors who want that happen. They just come back from FAC, look at the monies, look at these arguments and say, what is this local government we're talking about? What is it all about? Because if local governments today get their allocations directly as that amendment intends to address, most states will collapse. Very few states will survive. It is the local government allocation and all the judiciary and all that has helped some states to keep afloat. How much does an average state get from FAC? You see it published every day. The state will not operate.
Saying that the requests by the 25 houses of assembly of establishment of state police,
the voice of Joseph and the hand of Esau. It is the state governments that are responsible for that, and they will never allow that amendment to go on, particularly when we have few days. So I will expect Nigerians to use their PVCs to correct it. How? Don't vote for any governorship candidate that does not make local government autonomy one of his selling points or programs. So any governor that doesn't say it and mean it will not allow it to happen. It is only when these local government autonomies come to place that state governments will now sit down and do governance. Because
this is yeah. Well, Prof, I don't know if the value of the state houses of assembly, beg your pardon, the local government authorities are lost on the governors or on the governments and even the houses of assembly. Because back in time, I don't remember us having the level of insecurity that we have now. And as we often say, insecurity is, first of all, a local issue before it becomes a state or a national thing.
That's what I'm saying. Because of the failure of the local government system, schools, social amenities and all that, it aggregates to national insecurity. Because if local governments were providing roads, welfare, schools, because they actually get enough funds to do something. But those funds don't get to them. Because it gets into the state joint account. And they get what we don't know. Now, you cannot point to any local government in this country that executes projects. In any event, they have to go back to the governors to say, okay, can I to look for funds? So that constitutional contraption in Section 162 that creates state joint account, I do not think, we either do away with local governments and allow the states to create whatever is convenient for them that will work, or retain the 774 and make them autonomous. And then their funds will go direct to them. Each local government's fund will go to the local government itself.
But the Constitution recognizes the 774 local government authorities.
Not financially, as separate. Those funds will come into a joint account from where it will be disbursed.
So it's essentially like the Constitution saying, okay, you are there, but you have to still breastfeed.
Yeah, the Constitution may have meant well to say, because local governments in the state come together with the state government and carry out governance. But, you know, as it is today, it doesn't work in the interest of local governments and in the interest of the citizens. Because nobody can say exactly how much each local government now finally gets.
Then don't also forget that perhaps this should be brought in. One of the issues, I think, as we mentioned earlier previously, is that the State Houses of Assembly want state police included in the Constitution amendment. Is that out of place? They've made that known over and over again. It will seem like the National Assembly turned a blind eye to them.
See, that's the point I'm making. The National Assembly will not be looking at state police favorably because of the apparent fear of what secession and all that, as you saw in the First Republic. State assemblies will favor it because the governors want to control the police. So you see the dynamism. When it gets to local government, the National Assembly wants autonomy. The state governments don't want that. So the dividing line and the way forward in the best interest of the country is to place patriotism on the table and crush any interest that goes against it.
If these constitution amendments, these amendments being proposed, local government autonomy and the rest of them, are to go through as is expected, with the quantum of money assigned every time every National Assembly has that budget line, constitution amendment, if it will ever go through, what kind of conversations should be happening between the National Assembly and the State Houses of Assembly?
Well, I cannot say for sure, but what I know is that if local governments begin to get the proper funding, the judiciary gets, the work of the state assemblies will be easier because there will be development, there will be activity at the grassroots, which is the essence of state assemblies. And to a large extent, it will also rub off at nationally. But because do you know how in many areas some of these national legislators are looked at? Even those of the state, they are not, the citizens at the local level are not unhappy with them. You can see some viral videos where some of them are booed and all that, because take my constituency, federal constituency. The 3 local governments in my federal constituency are virtually states. And
Prof,
what will a person in the National Assembly, House of Reps, from my federal constituency, if you are familiar with my federal constituency, those 3 local governments have over 40% of the population of the states. 3 local governments. And now one person in House of Reps, what will the person do?
It only raises more questions, Prof. And let's just say that, it's an ongoing conversation altogether. Professor Paul Ananaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you so much for your perspectives this morning. Chamberlain.
Well, yes, indeed. We're turning our attention now to a matter, well, if you want to call it urgent national importance, you can, because it affects revenue generation for the country. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll get some perspectives from Mr. Andy Ode, who joins us next. He is the General Manager, External Relations and Sustainable Development for the NLNG. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well,
good morning, Chamberlain. Thank you very much.
Through from the NLNG concerning the force majeure, naturally there were lots of concerns about it. If I had experts in your field speaking, raising concerns about as much as your statements out there, but if they could just hear from you directly, could you give us a picture of what the current situation is?
Well, thanks a lot, Chamberlain. Good morning again. Well, as you're aware, on the 17th of October, we declared force majeure, but NLNG declared force majeure due to force majeure declared to the company by its gas suppliers because of flooding in their areas of operation. And of course, as we know, force majeure is usually declared when an unforeseeable circumstance prevents a party from fulfilling its obligations. So for us, while acting as a prudent operator, what we also did was to declare force majeure, more like a notification to buyers and stakeholders that this is what's happening as a result of flooding. And NLNG, as a reasonable and prudent operator, in order to also mitigate the adverse impact of such events, we continue to produce in our facility at the optimal level based on the feed gas we currently get. And of course, proactively engaging buyers and stakeholders. And this is one of the things that we're doing to ensure that everyone is on board concerning what has happened. We are in operation, and we are still producing LPG and LNG.
Okay, because there were some headlines that equally raised some concerns, even up till this morning, while they were talking about how this may have some impact on LPG. I know you did say you are still supplying, but at a limited capacity. So naturally, this will impact, or wait, is this going to impact on the price of gas now?
Well, we don't determine the price of gas as a company. However, I understand the fears and concern out there, but I think it's important to reiterate that we are producing LPG, which is the cooking gas, into the domestic market. Only last week, the only dedicated LPG vessel, Alfred Temile, left Ebonyi facility to deliver into depot in Lagos. Should this affect the price of cooking gas? No, it shouldn't. And I think to a large extent, the Nigerian Association of LPG Marketers have also gone out to assure the public that there's no need to panic buy. There's no need to stock or store cylinders in our homes because of the fear or concern that there will be scarcity. No, we're still in production just to provide that assurance.
In order to help us understand the significance of this, was there some sort of timeline given by your suppliers in terms of when they'll return to normalcy and things get back to how it used to be?
Well, Chamberlain, as you know, it's all about flooding. While it is difficult, I would say it is a bit difficult to predict the weather. However, other factors that are involved, taking into consideration the fact that when you shut down or when you shut in, you only begin to reset or begin to reopen your facility, not our facility this time, facility of the operators, when water recedes. And this we expect would happen by the upstream gas suppliers. But again, I think at this point, safety is key. Safety of people who work in those sites, and of course, safety of assets in those facilities. For us as a company, we will continue to monitor the situation. In terms of timeline, we're looking at the next few weeks. Some have said from the weather reports, confirmation is that as we speak, the water is no more rising, expected for it to recede. So in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we expect that things should begin to return to normal, if I'll speak for those who have provided that assurance.
Okay, then. So I think my colleague Aya has some questions for you. Aya, go ahead.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, so one of the questions that will naturally come to me is in terms of internally generated revenue for the country. NLNG is one of Nigeria's, should I say, cash cows. At the latest, before the rebasing of the economy, NLNG alone as an institution was doing 4% into the GDP of the country, 1% now after the rebasing. Is this force majeure in any way going to affect that indices?
That's almost a trick question for me, but let me put it this way. I think our focus right now as a company is to ensure that, one, our plant continues to run again. And the reason why I'll say that is in Ebonyi, where we operate, our plant and our facilities on Ebonyi Island is not affected by the flood. So our focus right now is to run the plant, continue to produce LNG and LPG based on the feed gas we get. So, but due to the rapidly evolving situation, I think it would be unfair or inaccurate for me to begin to fix numbers to whether we would contribute higher or lower. It's a conversation we'll have another time. But quite frankly, the situation, I believe, is going to get better.
Well, you already spoke to gas supplies, domestic gas supply earlier. But then, as Chamberlain pointed out to you, there are a good number of, in fact, on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer this morning, cooking gas prices are said to be on the increase. If you want to advise, first of all, is there an increase in the supply, the cost of supply from NLNG to, the people who supply Nigerians, or not? If there isn't any, is there a way to monitor whether or not people increase the prices where they are?
Well, I think first of all is to just say, look, what we do not determine the price. The other market forces. So if we're doing a little above 40% of what's required in country, haven't committed 100% of LPG production to the domestic market, which happened earlier this year. The question now is, so where is this happening? Where is this coming from? Do we have enough what we produce and what, of course, is imported into the country? Do we have enough to go around? Someone will say. I think demand is very high, and when demand is high, there are other market forces that determine the price. It means that less goods, more people chasing less goods. So I think a lot of questions to ask and answer in that space. My assumption, and from what I've heard from the marketers, is that they are not bringing enough LPG into the domestic market for so many reasons, from cost of funds to levies and all of that. But for us, we continue to remain committed to supporting LPG penetration in the country. And that is why we have dedicated 100%. So again, Ayo, quite frankly, maybe the experts in LPG marketing will be able to speak to that. We are just producing and pushing to the market. Yeah.
Well, allow me to scrutinize the statement, the last statement you put out about still being in business. Item 4 there says, Nigeria LNG continues to supply LPG to the domestic market for now from the limited production. For now could be interpreted in a number of ways. Does that mean it could get worse, or as we hope it gets better?
Well, I believe it will get better. When we say for now, it's in the same breath that we declared force majeure. We also saying, look, this is the current situation. However, the statement before that seeks to provide assurance that we're producing, we're delivering to the market. I think it's gotten to the bottom where things are a bit tight with the flood. Like I said, flood is receding. We don't expect anything to get. We don't expect it to get worse. It can only get better. That statement was issued last week because of the concern. But I think for what we hear, what we see around the weather forecast, things should get better. But again, just to appeal to everyone, you know what? You don't need to go fill up more cylinders, store them in the house. That's safety issues. And if we all go crowd into the point where we refill our cylinders, what does that mean? We are denying those who need to just have one cylinder in their homes. So what does that do? It puts a lot of pressure. Again, it's a lot of opportunity for us to say to everyone, this opportunity for us to say to everyone, please don't go panic buying and don't go stocking more cylinders in your homes.
Well, it's really hard to ignore the headlines. I mean, when you see a headline such as cooking gas more expensive in Abuja, and Abuja has largely been impacted, the energy market here in Abuja has been really impacted by what has happened in Lokoja. Few queues are really long, and you're also beginning to see some queues at the LPG stations here in Abuja. When you say do not panic, and you're hoping that things will get better, but from where you speak right now, it's still that it's getting better. It's still a forecast. Can you give, will I say, a more definitive time as to when you think that things might stabilize from the expectations of NLNG?
Okay, so Mogbe, thanks for that. Again, like I said earlier, NLNG is one of so many sources of LPG into the domestic market. And every volume we get, we commit to delivering into the domestic market. And also, like I said earlier, we expect that in the next 4 weeks or thereabouts, things should begin to get better. But again, like I said, also, volumes that we commit, only last week, we sent out a dedicated vessel that delivers LPG into the market. I think we need to look somewhere else as well. Do we have enough in the country? Are there opportunities that we're missing in terms of volumes that should be coming into the domestic market? If NLNG is accountable for just 40%, a little more than 40% of what we currently consume, it means there's a gap somewhere. That gap we can't fill. It depends on the gas, the feed gas we get to liquefy before we can push it to the domestic market. And as it is, we don't get enough feed gas. But from our own point of view, like I said, in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we should be able to be stable. We'll be stable enough to continue what we're doing. That is not to say that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we've missed another cargo of LPG into the market. No, because we don't do LPG into the market every day or every week. On the average, 1 or 2 cargoes a month.
In other words, I mean, and it's actually good perspective coming through there. I was going to ask that, does that then mean in the next couple of weeks, if you don't get any supply from your suppliers, will there be any cost to worry?
Well, if we don't, there would be cost to worry. We are all worried. One, as Nigerians, and two, we also have buyers and customers that we're dealing with in the entire spectrum of the product lines that we have. However, the assurance we have based on what we're hearing with the forecast that things will get better. I don't think they're going to get worse. They will get better.
All right. So you have indeed identified some perhaps food for thoughts for the country, because, I mean, looking at the floods in those different parts of the country, Bayelsa, Lokoja, they were really, really scary and challenging, especially those who have been affected. But it's good to know that none of the facilities for NLNG was impacted by this flood, just from your suppliers. And so next couple of weeks, as you say, hopefully things should normalize, and next month or thereabout, supply should be out there. So we have to thank you very much indeed for your time and perspective today, Mr. Andy Ode.
Thank you very much.
All right, so there you go. Looking at that is something that different sectors in different parts of the country are affected. So it will not be out of place for the authorities to, I mean, last week we spoke about how the energy sector needs to speak up about some of these issues. Today, well, yeah, much as we hear Ipman saying a thing or two, but the NNPC themselves, several others. I mean, today we equally saw that of the NSCDC talking about how this is impacting the health sector, the cholera outbreak that is. So all of these things.
NCDC, I think.
NCDC, I beg your pardon. They all feed into each other.
They do.
They do. And that's why there has to be some sort of coordinated approach.
Indeed, Chamberlain. I think it's that coordination that is missing. What we're seeing is more piecemeal response to this. We saw the executive director of the midstream and downstream sector visiting a number of fuel stations over the weekend. But for me, that response was rather late. And even then, it still hasn't had much of an impact, because if you go around the FCT this morning, you will still see queues, really long queues in a lot of filling stations. So what we look to see from the federal government, and the silence from the federal government as a whole has been deafening. Their response to the floods has been abysmal, Chamberlain. Yes, you can say that NEMA has been going round, but I would have wanted to see a more concerted effort at bringing comfort to the people who have been affected, at responding, because this is, I mean, right now people are saying declare an emergency. It is an emergency. If 500 to 600 people have lost their lives, and there's so many aspects of our lives that have been impacted by these floods, I do not see anything that is less than an emergency right here, Chamberlain.
And this is not a one-off, because they've told us time and again that, I mean, when we had it in 2012, many thought, oh, okay, after that's it. But look at it now.
Yeah.
The impact is bigger than what the different states experience. And who says the next one will not be bigger than this one? But the thing is, what kind of plans have we made? Have we had the proper assessment of what has happened? So this, I mean, this will have huge security implications if care is not taken. I mean, the Air Force also did tell us that they themselves are also doing something about all of this. But I think in the next couple of days, if not today, to get a lot more definition in terms of how are the authorities, how is government approaching this particular one. Has that conversation happened between the federal government and states? The governor of Anambra State did tell us last time that they plan to have that meeting. Has it happened? Because the lives of those who are affected shouldn't be on hold while we wait for the authorities to decide to have meetings and then respond. So, there you go. Well, that is it today. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Well, we saw some of your mails a little too late. Hopefully, we might be able to take them tomorrow. John Ogola, Henry Okeke, and a few others. Thank you so much for writing in.
Amayo Makinde, have a wonderful rest of your day and keep Nigeria in mind.